I'm a consultant from Springfield. I work with cybersecurity, or I help finance companies with cybersecurity. And today I would like to share a method to help DeFi and fintech companies prioritize securities. Because I see so many companies wasting time on security. It's a bit funny that I'm a security consultant that proposes not to spend money and time on security. But I would like to share what to focus on. So the first thing, fintech and finance companies are being targeted by cyber criminals, but not all fintech companies are being targeted. But there's also some attacks that can't be ignored, even if you're not being a target. The one trying, so the one that was heavily investing in Mt. Gox. So you might know Mt. Gox. It was a Bitcoin exchange that handled 70% of all Bitcoin transactions. They lost control over 850,000 Bitcoin back in 2014. And the most part of these Bitcoins were stolen by a hacker. And the hacker used an auditor's credentials from a compromised computer to exfiltrate all these Bitcoins. With this, I want to say that Bitcoin or fintech companies or central components in fintech industries are being targeted by hackers. For example, Bitcoin brokers or Bitcoin exchanges. Another example is Copay, which is a Bitcoin wallet platform. Copay was a victim of a supply chain cyber attack last year. There were some malicious code which injected itself into Copay's build process, and the malicious code that was injected was supposed to steal private keys for the Bitcoin wallets that had more than 100 Bitcoins in the wallets. Luckily, this crisis was avoided because the users wasn't fast enough to download the latest version containing this malicious code. But things could have gone bad. So what happened? There was an open source library that the app uses, event stream, was compromised. So, August last year, a user, right hand control, wants to contribute or suggest some changes to maintainers for the event stream library. He wants to introduce a new dependency to event stream. He calls this flat map. The following month, right hand control contributes these changes to the project, introducing this new library. Nothing malicious about it. And the next month, the third month, right hand control introduces a small change to this library containing the malicious code. This event stream package is downloaded 8 million times before detection 46 days later. And this malicious code then only targeted Copay. I was on another security team that responded to this attack during this time, and things could have gone bad if we were a target, or if it was a broad attack instead. So again, fintech companies are being targeted, and central components of the ecosystem is being targeted. But not all companies are being targeted. One group of companies that are not being targeted are the startups. They're not being on the attacker's radar. And with this, I want to make the point that early startups should not focus on security. It should not be the main risk they're focusing on. There are most likely other bigger risks that you should focus on, like finding a good product market fit or securing funding for your company. And likely, you don't have legacy infrastructure that you need to care for. And you're using cloud services like G Suite for email. This is the smart thing to do. You should leverage the security features that you have in your environment. But of course, there are some attacks that you cannot ignore. This is the background radiation. So these are attacks that are highly automated by nature. For example, exploiting known vulnerabilities. Attackers can pick some available exploit code and just sprinkle some automation on top of it and just try to find as many targets as possible. Another popular attack is password guessing, or it's also called credential stuffings. So you find passwords and credentials from data breaches and try these credentials on other services. This is highly successful for attackers because people reuse passwords all the time. And there's also the more known cases like phishing. Don't have to say much about phishing or anything. And then there's also the force group, which are scanners looking for configuration mistakes. This can be like a misconfigured Amazon S3 bucket, for example, or some Git repository missing authentication or something. So what to do about this? So these are my suggestions that I think fintech and finance companies can't ignore when being in our early startups, because, as I said, the background radiation. Another fun fact: background radiation is also what causes a Windows machine that's unpatched. If you put that Windows machine on the internet, it will be compromised within 20 minutes. There's this malicious payload being sent all the time on the internet. So to mitigate the issue of known vulnerabilities, you should try to get into the habit of patching it often. This is one of the biggest problems. Partly can automate it yourself, like patch it all the time, but some things you just have to get into the habit of patching when there are updates available. Don't postpone those updates or irritating things that disturb your work. I think it's reasonable to have some slack, like 30 days, but yeah. Or even better, if you have the infrastructure that you have, you can leverage things like serverless frameworks that outsource the need of patching. So Amazon or Google Cloud will take care of patching for you. And for automated password guessing, there's also this: you should try to use multi-factor authentication as often as you can. Or even a password manager if there's no option available. The next point is most likely the easiest thing to do, since if you're you're most likely a user of G Suite or Office 365, these services already include good email filters by default. So they're all filtering malicious attachments, for example, Word documents containing macros. And there are, of course, security scanners that you can use to validate your configuration of your services. For example, Forcito for Google Cloud, Amazon Inspector for Amazon Cloud, Amazon AWS. And it would also make the point that these are things that you can think of when designing your products. For example, you can offer, like Cefello, there. You can use offer your users bank ID authentication, or make the option for having a second factor the default. So you're forcing the user to make the safe choice. You can also, if you have an app, make sure that it auto updates when there is a security patch available. So my 3 points here are the fintech companies are a target for hackers. Secondly, but early startups have a window of opportunity that should be used to focus on bigger risks that are not security. And thirdly, there are this background radiation that you cannot ignore. So the takeaway I want you to take from this is that security is not scary. You should not be up at night and worry about it. So you should focus on security that makes sense to your business. And as your company grows, and you need to find help with security, you should find someone that gets your business, because you can spend how much money you want on security, but without making any difference. Thank you.
Questions?
Questions?
Isn't it what you always do? You look at high probability and high impact. For a small company, that's other things than that. So that's traditional security advice, because you have a holistic perspective.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is that most security people that work in security, they work for enterprise companies, and when enterprise companies have a different need for security than startups.
Yeah, but you're supposed to do it yourself because you know it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in a good spot as well as an early startups, because you know your company. Big enterprises are so big that they're very slow to move.
So who do you usually work with startups or big companies?
I have been working mainly with bigger finance companies.
Should like if I do a DeFi startup, should I have a security guy in my team, or should I outsource it with me, or
Of course, it depends. But the general recommendation I would not to have a test or define security person, because if you have smart developers, it will be fine. Mostly. You can of course get some consultation or some advice from some security advisor, but I don't think it's needed to have like a full-time employee just working on security at the early start.
have you had experience with the white hat hackers?
Yeah. So for example, do you mean like bug bounty platforms and such? Yeah, I have been helping a company start one, and that's also a great thing or it's a cost-effective way to do security testing in many cases.
How do you advise the bounty for hackers?
So usually you start out low, and when you introduce with a bug bounty program, you often start as a private bug bounty programs. You only invite a couple of white hat hackers that try to hack your products, and then as you progress through the maturity of your program, you can invite more hackers, and you can also increase the prices if you want to find more.
Okay. And should I do one security audit, or should I double check and audit to implement security audits on my smart contracts, for example?
Tricky question.
Or maybe you have a story about it.
Yeah, so the quality between security audits can vary very much. And it's very, very expensive to try to find one good auditor, and also it's highly dependent on the testers or the auditors you find. So even if you have your go-to company, you can get a new auditor, a new tester, and the result will be totally different. So I don't really have a good solution to that problem. Usually, if you get an auditor, it's mostly just for compliance. So it's mostly like many times it's just a cost center, so you want to keep the cost low. Then there is the actual security that you want. If you have a need for security, actual security, then you should try to fix it yourself.
When it comes to the bounty policy, have you seen companies having like a public bounty policies? And one of the fear of companies is once you release something publicly, this means that suddenly you will be flooded by all of this automated, check your website type of security requests. Have you seen this in practice? Did this happen? Do companies actually release a public bounty policy? And what happened afterwards with floods?
I was with a company that released a responsible disclosure page, where we received a lot of just easy to find security issues. Like you have you allow insecure cipher or not very good cipher in your HTTPS configuration. These kind of issues, or you can list users on the your WordPress blog. Issues like this. These are usually the way white hat hackers also test how your company responds to security reports. So if there will, of course, in the beginning be a small flood of vulnerability reports that are less valuable, but I think it's worth it it's just over a short period, and then you will also get the good ones.
Okay, so this means that you have seen companies that have a public policies, and where are these policies placed? Is it more in terms of service or more on different websites?
Yeah, so if you have there is a standard for where you can release a security text file that defines these things, like your encryption keys if you want to send. But I think the best way is to find a bug bounty platform that take care of all those things. They also have managed services that will help you filter for irrelevant vulnerabilities, so you don't have to take care of those. And also help you with paying out rewards for vulnerabilities if you want to have that kind of product.
I just have comments on this bounty topic. One risk, as I see it, is that if you actually do pay out bounties, the question is, will they also pay out for stopping a DDoS attack, for example? Like one way to do about it is to have a zero policy on paying out anything. Because if you start paying out on, for example, finding a bug, what about the DDoS attack? If you organize a DDoS attack, maybe this company is also willing to pay for stopping this attack. I mean, we have had a situation with a DDoS attack where we've had to make a decision to pay for them to stop or to wait it out and not pay. And if we would have paid anything, they would have done it again.
Yeah,
and again, and again, of course.
Yeah.
So I think this is worth taking into consideration, that bugs you can find and solve. But there are other ways of attacking that you cannot really 100% solve, and if you start paying out for those attacks, then you are going down a negative spiral of paying for different types of attacks, because they know you will pay.
Yeah.
That's a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, Uber had paid a ransom over HackerOne's platform, I think it was, and they received a lot of bad publicity due to this. So if you're using a platform provider, I guess you're running less of a risk of falling into this habit of collaborating with criminals. On the other hand, if you have a cybersecurity insurance and you are a victim of ransomware, some cyber insurance will pay that ransom for you just to get your operation up and running. And ransomware is an interesting topic in itself, because if you pay a ransom, I've heard this, you're often affected just a couple of days later if you don't fix your root problem, but not by the same root of ransomware, by another root. So it could be the same thing with.
All right. Speaking to. Yep. Put on the.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.